Everyone, welcome to tonight's regularly scheduled City Council meeting. If you'll all please rise. Tonight's invocation will be given by Deacon George Yend of St. Lawrence Catholic Church. I'll ask you to please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for all your blessings that you bestow on our community. Please continue to look favorably on us. And as this council gathers to serve you by service to our neighbor, guide us and give us wisdom to know how to best execute the authority that you have given us with humility and with respect for each other and every citizen. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deacon Yend. Okay, first order of business tonight is to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting, the agenda meeting, and the work sessions which were held on October the 9th. Council, do you have any additions or changes or deletions to these minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Any final discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Ms. Mazur, if you will present Mayor Wilson's report, please.
I have a couple of things this evening. First of all, one of the things the mayor wanted to do this evening was to recognize members of the Fairhope High School Buccaneer Band. On Saturday, October 14th, the band participated with 18 other schools in the Heart of Dixie Band competition in Prattville and won every award in its class, including Best in Class Drum Majors, Best in Class Percussion, Best in Class Color Guard, Best in Class Band, and they went on to earn the highest composite score of the competition and secured the Grand Champion Award. We are just absolutely ecstatic. The band is led by Anthony Fillingham as director, Chad Feisen as assistant band director, Philip Davis as color guard instructor, DJ White, percussion instructor, Stevie Miller, color guard assistant, and Jordan Wood, Stephen Thompson, and Callie Thorne, all percussion assistants. They're all a vital part of the football program in March and our many parades. In this March, they have been invited to represent Fairhope at the Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. So football, baseball, and soccer often overshadow the Buccaneer Band. We celebrate and encourage these future leaders of our community. Congratulations. And the mayor will be presenting the band with a certificate of achievement at the school slightly later. The moratorium report is out, and there were actually some findings. Things did get done, despite questions that were being asked during that period. The mayor will post it on her blog later this week. You've already seen some of the things that are resulted from it, the sewer report, and you'll be seeing ordinances that are going to be presented to council for updating and tightening, and in some cases loosening some of our restrictions. One of the things we are adopting immediately is the recognition that our various departments actually function best when they function together. One would think we were always doing that, but sometimes a department can make a decision here, but not realizing that it affects another department over here. So the lines of communication are being opened and kept open, and before a significant change or something is done by one department, they will check with the others to make sure there's no unforeseen circumstances. We just wanted to mention again to our citizens that there are complaints still coming to City Hall about AT&T service. We're sorry about that. We would love to help them, but unfortunately, it is not our responsibility. AT&T had plenty of time to figure out what to do with their tower and to continue their service to their customers uninterrupted. But we empathize, but we cannot do anything about that. Wanted to let you know that we had 138 soccer teams in town this weekend. 100 of them played on our field. We paired up with Daphne, and Tom tells us that it was an absolutely phenomenal success, that even though we had tornado warnings on Sunday and rain, they were able to complete. A few games didn't get played, but they had enough in pocket. They knew who the winners were. And apparently, unlike a lot of places, we had a plan. So everybody was thrilled to death, and Tom's gotten some feedback from the participants, the coaches, and the parents about how well Fairhope ran that program. We've said so many times that Fairhope is all about entrepreneurship. We were founded on it, and we foster it, and the mayor will be attending the Mayor's Conference on Entrepreneurship in Oakland, California, October 25th to the 27th. It is presented by the Kauffman Foundation, which covers all of the participants' fees 100%. Space was very limited at this conference, and she is honored to be included this year and looks forward to learning about what more we can do to continue our entrepreneurial history. And as a final task, I do wish the mayor were here, but I do have a certificate to give to Joseph Tarabella. This is something special for me, I have to say. My father was an Eagle Scout, and I was raised with all of those standards. And I must tell you that Eagle Scouts do become our leaders of our nation in the future. Joseph, come on over here. You are being presented this recognition of the community service given to the Eastern Shore Art Center, in which you designed and built 12 new easels for use by the artists and in the various classes offered at the community there to achieve the Eagle Scout Award, and the outstanding qualities you have shown in achievement thereof. We commend your dedication, attention to detail, and hard work, and deem it an honor and privilege to present you with this certificate of achievement. On behalf of the City of Fairhope, we are pleased to commend you for your fine efforts and extend this token of admiration with which you are regarded in our city. Best wishes to you in your future endeavors. You are sure to succeed. Thank you very much. It's my privilege to do this. And that's the mayor's report.
Thank you, Ms. Mazur. Council, I need to entertain a motion to amend the agenda. As item 19 is discussed in the work session, I would like to add the resolution to approve the Fly Creek sampling plan as submitted by Mobile Baykeepers, and to authorize payment to them, a total of not to exceed $6,500, and I would say in cash and or in-kind contributions.
So moved.
Second.
We're going to add this to the agenda first. I need one more. I had one more thing. I'm sorry. Yes. The other item that we need to add would be after the final public participation, which would be item 21, which would be to add an executive session to discuss possible impending litigation and settlement terms of that. So I'll entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add these items.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to add those two items. Any final discussion? Okay. All those in favor of amending the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Item 3 is public participation. This is pertaining to agenda items only. Items 6, 7, and 8 are public hearings, so no need to, you'll be given an opportunity during those agenda items to speak to those ordinances. So if you want to speak to items 9 through 20, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Okay, seeing no one willing to speak for public participation on agenda items, we'll move on to council comments. Councilman Robinson.
No comment.
Okay. Councilman Conyers.
Okay, I'll keep it brief, but Thief Fantasy of the Arts event was Saturday night here at the Civic Center. It was a fantastic event. A big thank you to everyone who participated with that. I also, last night, had the opportunity to introduce and welcome the Alabama Association of Regional Councils to the Grand Hotel. They will be in town for 3 days, and they were having the afternoon off, so we had beautiful weather and encouraged them to come downtown and shop and dine and spend some money. So hopefully they were here. Friday night, we've got homecoming at Fairhope. So come watch the Pirates. They've had a phenomenal season, really just about a play or two away from being undefeated. So come out and watch them. And then lastly, November the 3rd through the 5th, the Eastern Shore Repertory Theater is performing Peter Pan here at the Civic Center. It's going to be a great show. They do a phenomenal job. Aaron Langley, director of Eastern Shore Rep, recently was named Mobile Bay 40 under 40, and I think they're also up for one of the Impact 100 grants, so best of luck to them.
That's it? Okay. Councilman Brown?
Yeah, I want to give congratulations to Team Subway. Keisha's our captain for winning the Best of the Bay Gumbo Championship this past weekend, and wish everybody a happy and safe Halloween.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. Councilman Boone?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate Councilman Conyers' comments on I'd like to see everybody come out and support the football team for the homecoming game this coming Friday at the Fairhope football field. They're playing Alma Bryant, and again, it'll be their homecoming game. And also, if y'all like to get a big bowl of candy, just stop by Councilman Burrell's house and just help yourself come Halloween. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Boone. I have about 3 announcements to make. First, I want to personally congratulate Joseph Tarabella on obtaining Eagle Scout, a personal family friend and great young man, friends of my kids, and yeah, you exemplify what an Eagle Scout should be, Joseph, and congratulations on that. Mr. Cortinez, could you come up? You've probably been bombarded with the recent rains, concerns over the conditions at Battles Road and Section Street?
Yes, sir. Council, I had asked Council President Burrell to let me come up and kind of recap what's going on out there. There's been a lot of phone calls. A lot of folks are very upset about what's going on out there, and a lot of talk on social media. So I'd like to kind of let everybody know what the facts are, what has happened, and what we're currently doing. The building permits, and I'm talking specifically about the Old Battles Village project, which is the townhome and triplex project that's going on. We issued those permits at the end of November, beginning of December last year. There's 144 units on that property. To date, including today, because of violations or what we deemed as violations of the erosion sediment control ordinance, we issued our 5th stop work order for that project today. What the law allows us to do, and when I say the law, I'm talking about our ordinance. What it allows us to do is to issue a stop work order if there is a blowout or a failure of the erosion controls for any project. We're allowed to stop all work other than repair of the BMPs on the site. And in this case, what we've done in each case is we have a consulting engineer. The developer has an engineer. Once the repairs are made, we have gone and made a site visit and made both of the engineers, or asked both of the engineers to go out and look at it as well and clear it to show that they are back within their approved erosion sediment control plan. One of the issues we're having out there is turbidity, or occluded water, the red muddy water that you see. The way that our ordinance is written, it is tied to an NTU reading, which is a water clarity reading. That defers in our ordinance to ADEM because they are the designated state environmental protection agency, okay? We are allowed to assess fines if the turbidity levels reach certain amounts. That is dependent upon the testing from ADEM. One of the frustrations on our part is over these 5 stop work orders, and actually through pretty much every rain event we've had, there is language in the ADEM regulations that they declare it, I believe the term is an upset condition. If it's 6 or 7 inches within a 24-hour period, they suspend all fines. I have been asked many times why we're not fining them for violations, and it's going to be very difficult for me to come to city court where our maximum fine is $500 and convinced Judge Snedeker to assess a fine when the state agency that is tasked with this specific purpose has suspended those fines. That's part of the issue that we run into. There was also some questions about the culverts that were run across Battles Road recently within the last couple of weeks, and why the city allowed them to do that, and that was entirely a Baldwin County Highway Department issue. That, to my knowledge, I didn't know about it until it was done. They may have talked to Wayne or to Mr. Johnson, but that is a county road, and they did that project of their own volition. One of the things, we changed our ordinance, our erosion sediment control ordinance 2 weeks ago. We don't have many development sites like this, so there are things on that project that are not specifically addressed in our ordinance. It's one of those things that we have seen that we have these issues. We proposed some changes, and we asked you to approve that, which you did. I cannot retroactively go back and enforce those requirements on this site, but we have other sites that are coming, that we know are coming. We are hoping this gives us the ability to better control and try to prevent some of the things that are happening there. The one thing, there's two things I'd like to point out. I talk to people. I've been stopped in the grocery store on Sunday afternoon. I've been stopped at church. I've been stopped all over the place, and people talking about it. I would ask people to keep in mind that we all live here too. We care about this. This is not something that we're blowing off and that we don't care about. We are limited by what we can do under the laws and ordinances that we have. You know, one of the major frustrations I've had is, up to this point, the city of Fairhope, between ADEM, the city, and the Baldwin County Highway Department, we're the only ones that have enforced anything out there. We're running on 60 days plus of lost time that the contractor has due to these stop work orders, and once they finish their repairs tomorrow or the next day, if the engineers clear it, we're going to turn them loose, and we're going to let them go again. It's important that we finish this project, that they're allowed to finish, because that's going to change the turbidity issue. I can't speak to the volume of water issue. That's an engineering issue, and I'm not qualified to speak to that. But finishing the project and getting everything stabilized is the best thing that we can do to stop the environmental issues of this water flowing down through Point Clear Stables, Polo Ridge, and on out the Grand Hotel Golf Course. So just to let you know where we are, and that is what we are doing at the time. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, and my last comment actually leads us into item 5 on tonight's agenda. And I think it's very fitting tonight, welcoming all these veterans here, and thank you all for being here. I see many, many former veterans of the year on the front row here, and maybe behind the front row, but especially I recognize everyone on the front row. And that it's a very special time. Our Veteran of the Year, Mr. Jerry Cherney, we're going to have Mr. Jim Jeffries, who's also been a past Veteran of the Year, come and make an introduction of Mr. Cherney. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to be able to do this. The Veteran of the Year always leads the Veterans Day Parade, which will be on November the 4th, Saturday, November the 4th. It starts right here at the Civic Center. So I'd invite you all to come out and attend that parade. It's a great event. It's one of the best events that we have in town every year. So without further ado, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. Would all of the former past Veterans of the Year either rise or raise your hand and identify yourselves? Thank you. We also have, sitting on the front row, my far left, a guest this year, United States Navy Captain Hal Pierce, retired. He is the designated Sea Lord of Mobile, Alabama, and he hosts all the Navy vessels that come into port. On to the award. This is a very unique, prestigious honor. Fairhope Veteran of the Year, the criteria for selection, nomination, and it's very strict. You must have an exemplary military record. Secondly, weighted just as heavily, you must have exemplary service once you are out of uniform, meaning you continue to serve veterans and you serve the community. And it also has this other distinction that the individual that's selected each year is chosen by a peer group, meaning other veterans, and that peer group is comprised of the past winners of the prestigious award. My honor this year to introduce United States Marine Corps Devil Dog, retired Jerry Cherney. Jerry is a Vietnam veteran. He's a combat veteran, recipient of the Purple Heart, the Combat Action Ribbon, and many, many other awards. He also holds the distinction that no matter what branch of the service you are in, that is totally admired by the rank and file, and that is the moniker of Mustang. A Mustang is an individual who rises through the enlisted ranks to become an officer. That is based totally on merit and on leadership qualities, and Jerry is a Mustang. He's a life member of the Marine Corps League. He also happens to be the 2017 Marine of the Year for the state of Alabama. He's a member of the American Legion and VFW, both here in Fairhope, Disabled American Veterans, Military Order of the Purple Heart, and Military Officers Association of America. Additionally, he sits on the South Alabama Veterans Council in Mobile. He's a member of the Board of Directors of the State Veterans Cemetery Foundation at Spanish Fork. He's on the Planning Committee, the Blue Star Salute Foundation out of Birmingham, which puts on the Blue Star event on Armed Forces Day each year at the Battleship. He also is very active in the state capitol's POW MIA ceremony annually. And this year, he orchestrated, conducted, and emceed the first POW MIA ceremony down here in South Alabama. It is my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Jerry Cherney.
If you will stay there, I'm going to ask Councilman Brown, who's himself a U.S. Army veteran.
I believe the mayor just slipped in as well, so he'll come down. I have a presentation to make, and I'll ask the mayor to come down and join. We'll make a presentation to you right now.
Yes, sir. Smile, Jerry.
I just wrote it down. Congratulations on the 2017 Veteran of the Year. Thank you so much for your service.
Marine, floor is yours. But don't take it with you.
I do. Thank you, Jim. That was quite an introduction. Some of it was even true. I also want to thank the mayor and the city council for supporting this award, as well as supporting the annual Veterans Day Parade. It's a great event. And of course, the previous recipients who made the selection. They're my role models. I also want to thank my wife, Roberta. She's actually the volunteer in the family. She's been volunteering in the community, in various communities for decades now. And she's also the one that encouraged me years ago to get involved. And way back when I was in the military, she's the one that encouraged me to apply for the Warrant Officer program, so I know her a lot. Anyways, I'm deeply honored and extremely humbled to accept the award. And like I said, I have some outstanding role models, and they're all sitting right here in the front row. All I did was follow their lead. The past recipients have done so much for the veteran community, for the veterans and community. They indeed lead by example, and I'm humbled to join their group. As Jim mentioned, I'm a member of various veterans organizations, but my first love is Marine Corps of Eight, here on the Eastern Shore. But I need to stress that anything and everything we do, for veterans and in the community is a team effort. The veterans know how to work together, and once they identify the mission, we just go out and accomplish it. But it's always a team effort. So I accept this award on their behalf. Thank you again. Semper Fi.
Congratulations again. Next item on tonight's agenda is a public hearing. This is item 6. This is an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance number 1253. This is a request to rezone the property of CDA LLC and Kerrigan Properties LLC from R1 Low Density Single Family Residential District and R4 High Density Multi-Family Residential District to a, and we'll give them just a moment to exit.
Good old boy. Good old boys.
Council President, ready to proceed?
Not yet.
Okay.
Give them just a
Oh,
moment.
okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, so just finishing that statement up. This property is located at 806 and 812 North Greeno Road in Fairhope, Alabama. Mr. Dias?
Thank you, Council President. As you mentioned, this is a rezoning. Their request is to establish a PUD, a mixed-use PUD, on 5.27 acres. The proposal consists of 11 buildings, 2 and 3 stories, equating to about 60,000 square feet of office, retail, medical, and also residential units. I believe approximately 7 units that are residential. The site is comprised of 44% open space. As you can read the staff report, we went into quite a bit of detail on how we reviewed this with the current comprehensive plan. And I've tried to outline the important sections as much as I can. I'll be brief tonight, but in looking at the current comprehensive plan and comparing the current proposal, we felt like the proposal did not meet that comprehensive plan. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about some amendments that are necessary of that comprehensive plan, and even a overlay of Greeno Road or some different sort of codes to establish some guidelines for that. So just want to make sure that that's known. The current use of the property is currently a manufactured home park. As it currently sits, it's right across from the Valanta Park and the Rec Center. Also behind it is Auburn University. This is a triangular piece of property. The shape of the property and its location limits it to some degree to what kind of uses can go there. We presented this application to the Planning Commission with the same recommendation that I just made to you a minute ago. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this. They did want to clarify some of the buffering along Greeno Road and wanted to include in there canopy trees, understory trees, which the applicant did propose and has amended his plans to show that. Again, the Planning Commission recommended approval. Our recommendation from staff is strictly on the comprehensive plan, and when you look at that, we felt like that did not meet that. However, again, I want to mention that I believe that we are also looking at some future proposals for Greeno Road and an overlay for that may clarify some of these standards that are in the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned in the staff report and mentioned before, a comprehensive plan is a very broad document, very long range. Some of the details may not be as hashed out One of the issues maybe we've discussed before is where does commercial begin and end on Greeno Road? That's been a common discussion, I believe, for quite some time in Fairhope. The comprehensive plan doesn't give a whole lot of guidance to that effect of where it begins and ends. And I believe hopefully in the future, as we bring some new plans online with the city, we can help clarify that and make these processes a little bit easier decision-making process when we have that proper guidance and direction for future development. But with that, again, I want to mention staff recommends denial, Planning Commission recommended approval of this application with a condition of adding the understory and the large trees. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions or you may have.
Any questions, council, for Mr. Dias?
Yeah, Wayne, I see on here, amend the PUD to include a church school.
Yeah, there was I think a transposing error on one of these. This is the Park Place PUD.
You're going to have to look under tab 7.
Right. That's the next item, Councilman Brown. I believe we had maybe a little scanning, got a little, when he scanned the document, it may have gotten a little bit mixed.
This is Park Place subdivision. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Park Place PUD, I should say.
Right.
Proposed. Any questions?
Yep.
Okay. We'll give the developer an opportunity to speak before we open the public hearing. Will somebody introduce this ordinance, please?
I introduce it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, my name's Larry Smith. I'm the civil engineer for the project, and just want to kind of give y'all a synopsis of what we're proposing here. As Wayne mentioned, the Planning Commission had requested that we increase the buffer. We originally showed the minimum 20-foot buffer along Greeno Road, and we were able to take that up to 25 feet. And that's at the narrowest point. It actually widens as it goes out to get up to 35 feet along Greeno Road. But at the narrowest point, we're at 25 feet. And they had also asked for some clarity on what the landscaping would look like, and we provided them a conceptual landscape plan for that, and that should be in y'all's packages. Kind of walk through the process we had when we started the development concept. We identified 3 goals that we wanted to meet, and the first one was to minimize the parking on Greeno. That's one of the things we feel like if Greeno is going to go towards a commercial zone in this point, we don't want to create a parking lot as the entry. And so with the concept, we were able to provide 79% of our parking behind the building line, the front building line. And to minimize the parking in the front, we did parallel parking to make it look more of like a road there. The second idea is to have effective and appropriate access. As you drive up and down the road, you'll probably notice there's 4 different access points currently comprising the 2 different properties, and we're proposing to take that down to 2, one being a full access and the second one to be in a right-in, right-out access point. And then the third concept was to promote open space and walkability, and we did that. We achieved that by having specific buildable areas, and then we could introduce courtyards, sidewalks, and landscaping within that. And by doing that, we've achieved just over 35% of the site is landscaping, 13 and a half are sidewalks and courtyards, giving us a total of 48.9% open space for the project. I can go into the disagreements on the comp plan. I realize that we're probably going to be going through a time where that's going to be looked at. As y'all are aware, 2 properties to the north of us, there's the Hayek PUD that is very similar in use and nature. that was being approved while the comprehensive plan was being created. I think it was finally approved by the city council 17 days before the comp plan was approved by the city council, just one meeting beforehand. So I just think if that project didn't meet what the intent of that comprehensive plan was, because they've been working on it for a year, that it probably would not have been approved as well. I can go into a lot of different items on it, but I agree with one of the synopsises on Greeno. We've got to establish where those buffer areas are. When we start looking at the comprehensive plan, I would say that we have buffers. We have Colonial Woods. We have the triangle piece of property. We have the woodlands. We have those residential components along Greeno that they're established. This particular property, as Wayne had indicated, we are landlocked. One of the comments we heard early on was, why not just turn it into a residential neighborhood? This project is a triangle in nature. It's very narrow. The only way to turn it into a residential neighborhood would be to put 5 or 6 lots that just fronted Greeno Road. And as we can see, going up and down Greeno, nobody wants to build a house fronting Greeno anymore. It's become too much of a commercial road. That's all I have right now. If y'all have questions for me, I'll be glad
Questions
to.
from Mr. Smith? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll open up the public hearing now. If you would like to speak to this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Council, I would advise that we let this lay on the table until the next regularly scheduled council meeting. So I hear a motion for immediate consideration. I would not recommend that. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is a public hearing. This is an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance number 1253. This is the request to amend ordinance number 1273, known as the East Park Subdivision. Plan unit development, the property of Wendell and Charlotte Barnhill is located on the north side of Parker Road between US Highway 98 and High Ridge Road at 7625 Parker Road. Somebody like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce it.
Okay, ordinance has been introduced. Mr. Dias?
Thank you, Council President. This is an amendment to a PUD that was established in 2005. The owner is Wendell Barnhill. It's located at 7265 Parker Road. The current PUD consists of 12.1 acres, and it has 47 single-family lots that were approved in '05. They have since had, I guess, no activity for that, and now we have a request to amend the PUD to include a school there, a church-related school, and also there's a little out parcel that's abuts county zoned area that is to the west, and they wish to have that with uses that are consistent with B2. So that's the current request, again, to take the vast majority of the property and make that into, again, the church school site, and then also the little small out parcel that's outlined in red, circled in red on your staff report, and they want that to be B2, and their intent is to do some sort of storage there. In your packet, you'll also see we've included a copy of the county zoning map for that area, and that is B2 zoning in the county, which this would abut. And I think staff feels this would be consistent with the county zoning as well, and so the B2 is not an issue. The church school site would, in our opinion, would be somewhat low impact, and we recommended approval of that, of the amendment to the PUD, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval. The one condition that we requested was to maintain a 20-foot buffer in areas that abut residential, which is primarily, I believe, to the east, just to make sure there's a visual buffer there, maybe lighting and so forth that may take place there. And so that's our condition that we requested as well, just to maintain some visual buffer between the school and the rear of single-family homes. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So this does not contain the property, the current school is on, is it adjacent to that? Does it run behind that?
No,
Is
sir.
that it bordering it on the north?
Council President, I don't think so. I can clarify that for the next meeting, but I do not think so, but I'm not certain of that. That has not been brought out before, but we can certainly check that.
I think it does, Jack.
Does it?
Yeah. Well, this would be to the south of the school, maybe.
Yeah, I see
Right.
Publix to the south there, so.
I guess just hypothetical, what would be allowed there? Would it be school buildings? Would it be athletic fields or something such as that?
It would be a school and anything, and I would say any normal accessory use to a school. It's been conveyed to us that they wish to build a new school building there. And I have not heard about any athletic field. That's not been discussed with us about that.
So the plat that I'm looking at from '05 would change then?
That's right, yes, sir. This would amend that PUD, and those 47 lots would then go away in place of one larger, with the PUD, one large schematic for the church, for the school site. With one little small out parcel that's circled in red as being a small area that the owner wishes to, I believe, keep for himself. And again, he's requesting B2 for that piece of property, a B zoning that is consistent with the B2 uses in the PUD. Which again, that also abuts the county zoned area, which is B2, which then abuts 98.
Well, it's a little bit confusing. They want it to be consistent with B2. That's kind of a catch-all in there. And the benefits of a PUD is that we can say what goes in there.
That is correct.
If you approve a PUD and you leave a portion as B2, who's to say what goes in there?
Yeah.
And then that's not meaning anything would go back, it wouldn't be fitting, but it's a catch-all.
And Council President.
Kind of contradicts a PUD.
Right. It does abut county zoning that is B2. However, in the county, B2 is not as an intense of a zoning category as the cities. In B2, the B2 in the city is a little more broader than B2 in the county. So I just make sure that's clear too, because B2 is one of those mid-level commercial zonings in the county.
Do we have a full list? I don't see it of what is allowed in the county in B2. Could you
I did
get
not.
us that maybe for the?
We certainly can. We certainly can get that for you.
There's no doubt that these areas are all sensitive and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And certainly in a PUD, if they're wanting a PUD, we have the authority to look at that a little closer.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Any questions for Wayne?
Yeah, Wayne, this is more of a general question. This is based on a PUD that was approved in October of 2005. Aren't we doing something in our new regulations that require that these things expire, that they're not open-ended for eternity?
Yes, we are. That's one of the things we identified as something we needed to address. Right now, a PUD could go on forever, and as conditions change and so forth, that can be problematic. We are putting some limitations on expiration dates, but also, to be fair, we're giving some opportunities for people to ask for extensions and so forth. I think the way we have it proposed, I don't think it could go beyond 4 years. So you'd have to start construction in 4 years, do some kind of activity out there. If it was under the current proposal we're making, it would be 4 years.
Right.
Was a traffic study not required?
I don't believe it rose to the level of a traffic study.
With a school?
And the traffic study is really, it's found in the subregs, and they're not doing a subdivision. So typically, when you see a traffic study requirement, that's in the subregs. And again, with say, a neighborhood and residential lots, so forth, that would drive that traffic study. That's another good point you bring out. Right now, you can have some commercial developments that are in the zoning ordinance that we don't have any trigger in our current zoning ordinance for traffic studies, and that's something we probably want to address, because right now it's only based in the subdivision regulations.
Any further questions? Okay. All right, I'll allow the owner or developer an opportunity to speak. present them? Okay. All right, we will open up the public hearing. If you want to speak to this matter, come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Council, I'd recommend laying this over to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Hearing no motions to the contrary, we will lay this over to the next meeting. We move on to item 8. This is a public hearing as well. This is an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance number 1253. This is a request to rezone the property of Robert and Deborah Green from R1 low-density single-family residential district to B2 general business district. This property is generally located at 415 North Reno Road, Fairhope, Alabama. Somebody like to introduce this ordinance, please?
I'll introduce it.
Okay, the ordinance has been introduced. Mr. Dias?
Thank you, Council President. This is a rezoning that I believe has a bit of a history in Fairhope, and I won't go through all the detail. That's pretty lengthy. I know that you want to be brief tonight. The owners are Robert and Deborah Green. Their request is to rezone their property, which is currently R1, to B2. They currently have a nursery and a landscaping business there, among others, which is outlined in your staff report. We went back and looked at the current zoning for the property, and it looks like, to the best of our knowledge, it was established in 1961 or 1960, somewhere in that time frame with the R1. And it's our information we found that the use was established prior to that. The nursery use and so forth was established prior to that 1960 or 61 zoning to residential. One of the concerns that we heard at the Planning Commission meeting was there was some concern about strip commercial on Greeno Road, which is I think a legitimate concern, much like the Park Place PUD. It's a difficult issue. In your staff report, we outline some of the issues that you have with that, and I think the facts kind of show that residential is not that desirable on Greeno Road right now. We have several older subdivisions that were approved, and very little activity has been found on those. And looking at some of the trip counts from the DOT, what we found was they had a traffic counter in front of this property about a year ago, it looks like, and there was 23,610 trips in front of this piece of property. Now, to give you a frame of reference, if you go up to Daphne on kind of the main commercial corridor, they have 35,000 trips there on that main commercial corridor just south of I-10. So this is a pretty heavily traveled road. And I guess in staff's opinion, residential for this area is probably not conducive, just by way of the trip generation, the level of traffic you have here. And I realize it's been a sensitive subject over the years, and there's been some concern about, airport looking like Airport Boulevard and some of those issues like that. Which is why we want to pursue a better plan for Greeno Road, a more comprehensive plan for Greeno Road to ensure we don't have that. I will tell you, one of the things that in our ordinance now, we have limitations on freestanding buildings. I don't think you're going to see something like that happening in Fairhope, where you have just a constant parking lots and buildings. I don't think that will happen here, but we want to, again, down the road, have that analyzed and studied, and then come up with a plan for Greeno Road. So that's been a major concern. From our perspective, we require buffering along Greeno Road per our landscape ordinance, so that will be in place. Also, to the rear of the property, that maybe there's some buffering required between anything commercial and residential. 20-foot landscape buffer is required there. There's also a natural gully that's there that also creates a buffer between the use and neighboring properties. So we feel like you have some natural buffers as well as some landscape buffers required, which would help mitigate any potential nuisances that may arise, if any, from this piece of property. I go into some detail about the comprehensive plan and so forth in your staff report that was presented. Again, the comprehensive plan has some good guidance, but sometimes it's a little bit short on the details, which makes it very difficult to analyze some of these areas that may be in transition. But one thing I think that we feel pretty strongly about is that residential on Greeno Road is becoming less and less likely and less suitable and conducive, just again, because of the nature of the travel on Greeno Road. This application was presented to the Planning Commission on August the 7th. They received a unanimous approval, recommendation for approval to the City Council from the Planning Commission, and staff concurs with that recommendation. Be glad to answer any questions.
Questions, council? You know, with all the talk, I have to admit, Wayne, that I'm surprised that the staff recommends approval without a site plan, and I'm also surprised that the Planning Commission voted unanimously without a site plan when they denied some things that had a site plan,
Right.
concerned about what's going to go in there. I don't have a problem with a rezoning because I don't think that it should be R1 at all.
Right.
I totally believe in that, but I think that you know, to blanket B2 without a vision of what it's going to be, could be sold and be whatever that new owner wants it to be once it's rezoned. And, you know, we said that we were going to do the site plan approval process. We haven't gotten there yet, and I'm very aware of the sensitivity of what I'm stating right now, very aware of that,
Right.
but I'm still not going to shy away from that
Sure.
comment. I'm just very surprised. Everybody wants to know what everything's going to be on that road.
Right.
And now they don't want to know what this is going to
Right.
be.
And Council President, I'd like to address those comments, and I can appreciate your concern, and from staff's perspective, we can't demand a site plan approval. They can offer it. The only site plan approval you're going to have is a PUD. If you did a PUD there, you could ask for that site plan approval. They did not request that. We took the request that was given to us and analyzed it to the best of our ability. Now, as far as the site plan approval process coming, that is coming. We are working on that. It is going to the Planning Commission, and you will see that very, very shortly, where rezonings will require site plan approval. So that is certainly coming. I would anticipate in the next month and a half, it should be in front of you to make a decision on as far as moving forward with that. So we definitely believe in that concept. When this was presented to us, it was a PUD only. The site plan approval is triggered by certain things that you may have on the property. So to say that would not be required, it depends on what they chose to do there. If they chose to do a new site and it triggered that site plan approval as it currently stands, we would absolutely make sure they go through that process. But that process is coming. We are proposing an amendment. It is going to the Planning Commission, this next Planning Commission, and we hope to get that to you as soon as possible. And I can absolutely appreciate the concern as far as knowing what's going to be built on Greeno Road, and I can absolutely, I concur with that.
Were any self-imposed restrictions ever discussed at the Planning Commission?
No, sir.
That's what I was just about to ask. We just had a recent rezone at Edwards, I guess about a half a mile, not even half a mile to the south, where a bank is going into that location, and they rezoned from R1, I guess also to B1 or B2. I can't recall exactly which it was, but
B2 with
with
deed restrictions.
Yeah, with self-imposed deed restrictions to prevent it from becoming a restaurant, a dry cleaner,
Automotive.
Automotive.
Gas station or repair shop.
And I do think that there's a lot of concern. I hear from a lot of citizens about what's happening along Greeno. And just wanting to, I agree with Jack that this is, it hasn't been operated as a residence for years and years, if ever. And I don't think it's realistic that this property is going to become a residence, but some type of restriction might be nice, just so you know, not necessarily what the Greens intend to do with it, but down the road, who knows what happens if you go full B2.
Right. And I guess to give a little further explanation about B2, if you read, in our ordinance, we have the B2, we have a purpose statement about what B2 is, what it's intended for, and then we also have the uses that are allowed. And I guess what struck me as far as B2 in the purpose statement, which kind of makes a foundation for the uses in B2, it talks about serving a regional market and local markets. And I mean, obviously, on Greeno Road, that serves a regional market as well as a local market. And that's kind of, and when you read some of the others, local shopping district B1, that doesn't fit that. It's not local shopping, it's more of a main thoroughfare through there. And so I guess when us looking at it, trying to apply the current ordinance we have, I think we felt like that was the most consistent one that fit that area. And I realize the sensitivity to it, but strictly from the zoning ordinance perspective, when you talk about major transportation routes and serving regional markets, when you have 26,000 trips on a road, that's certainly a regional provider for services throughout Fairhope and outside Fairhope and other environs. So that's kind of how we arrived at that conclusion. The site is it's not really conducive to a lot of large developments. If you look at the site, it's got a gully and so forth, and I don't believe it's conducive to any kind of a huge, this is not a 30-acre site. This is a small site. That's several acres.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we will allow the owner or developer to speak.
Good evening. Council President Burrell, you had asked that I bring with me the PowerPoint presentation that we prepared for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I ask you to condense it if you could, too.
It's rather brief, but I apologize, like home movie night with this PowerPoint. But I think poor Roberts might be the third time he's seen it, and poor Councilman Conyers at least the second time. But I think it might be instructive that we do so, because I think it could allay some of the concerns you have at the Planning Commission, which again, Mr. Dias pointed out, they voted unanimously in favor of this rezoning. There were a number of residents there, immediate neighbors, who had some concerns, and I think we addressed all those concerns of our immediate and close neighbors who have no objections to what we are proposing. So with that, let me go over this briefly, if possible. I think this is all in your package, but I think it's very instructive as to where we are to this date. With the helpful assistance of Ms. Hanks, my wife Deborah researched the rezoning requests that my father went through down through the years for this property. The business is Fairhope's oldest family-run business that began in 1932, so for approximately 30 years it was run as a B2 business on that current site. Now, the cities, down through the years, the city administrations and council and planning commission always denied his rezoning requests and considered the property to be grandfathered in. Now, under those conditions, his rezoning requests were turned down at least 10 times that we can find down through the years. However, at the same time that those requests were turned down, on numerous occasions, my dad was granted a building permit by the city of Fairhope. Now, that can't be done on a grandfathered piece of property. You can't expand the business on a grandfathered piece of property. However, time and again, we were given building permits that expanded that B2 piece of property. So from a legal standpoint, we consider ourselves rezoned by the city of Fairhope already. But I understand these concerns. We live along Greeno Road ourselves, and we don't want an airport boulevard, quote unquote, along Greeno Road either. We live directly behind this piece of property. As I mentioned, 1932, Fairhope's oldest family-run business. Down through the years, on this site, we've pretty much done numerous business applications, from landscaping to mail order nursery to retail and wholesale nursery. That pretty much florist business. That pretty much went along until the 1970s when we expanded the business to include sales of clothing, gardenware, tools, antiques, reproductions, what else, Deborah? Furnishings, indoor-outdoor furniture, such as that. So basically, everything was B2 on the site for at least the last 45 to almost 50 years. Lately, our emphasis has been on garden design, and our work appears in some of the magazines you might notice there, Southern Living, This Old House, Better Homes and Gardens, a few horticultural textbooks. Most recently, our work is in the public sector. We designed the Winter Garden at Mobile Botanical Gardens, which was recently named a International Garden of Excellence. There are 4 others in the United States with such a designation. Our consultations include such places as Augusta National Golf Course, Magnolia Plantation in Charleston. You might recognize the Biltmore House. And the picture there is Longwood Gardens in Delaware. That's their camellia garden that we helped design and supplied the plant materials for. And when the state of Alabama chose to 5-lane the highway through this location at 415 Greeno, we were obligated to purchase some property on Morphy Avenue where we established a wholesale business of plant growing. That's an aerial view of that. It's approximately 9 acres. And you'll notice it's surrounded by R1, R2, and R3 properties. But you might also notice that the first thing that we did was create buffers between this business and all of our neighbors on all 4 sides of us. So I would think with a 60-foot frontage off of Morphy Avenue, many Fairhopians don't know that this site even exists there. A couple other things we do, we offer tours from national and international groups. The one in this photo is some group from Australia who were about the most happy-go-lucky people you'd ever meet. Just yesterday, we hosted a young lady from Shropshire, England, who was visiting nurseries in the southern U.S. One thing we do on Greeno Road that is important to the local economy is we've researched and developed hybridized new plants that are in the Southern Living Plant Collection. They are patented plants that are represented throughout the east and west coast and now are starting to have an international distribution. But all of this is going on at 415 North Greeno Road. So as we've apparently gone through the years and to some degree thrived, you have to ask the question, well, why do we want to change now? Well, Fairhope's changing greatly. In 1932, Greeno Road was a red clay rut. In fact, all the property owners along there gave the right-of-way to the state in order to have the road paved. About 1960, my sisters used to play hopscotch out on that road, and occasionally you could hear one of them holler, "Get out of the road, there's a car coming." Well, things in Fairhope have changed greatly since that time. I think Mr. Staceville, I don't know if he's here tonight, his family built the last house on Greeno Road, the last single-family residence. It's adjacent to our nursery. That was approximately 1970. So it's been almost 50 years since anybody's chosen to build a home along Greeno Road. In the mid-1990s, the highway was widened to a 5-lane highway, and that forever changed any chance of Greeno Road's remaining residential. It changed the character completely. 100 feet of right-of-way was taken, 50 feet from each side of the highway at that point. And I might mention to Wayne's remark about the buffers along Greeno Road. Greeno Road has a special wider than average buffer in Fairhope. Some of the main arteries in Fairhope, Greeno Road being one, have a wider tree protection buffer than any of the lateral streets that run off the arterials. So you have in place now a lot of quarter 98 trees. There's a wide buffer in place along Greeno Road to begin with, but now along Greeno Road, everybody that still is living along there, including World War II hero Bub Bishop, who lives across from us, we're awakened about 4:30 a.m. each Friday by the city's mowers running up and down the median of Greeno Road, which to me blows away any idea that there could ever be residential along Greeno Road anymore. I understand that that's probably the most appropriate time to be mowing along Greeno Road, but I don't think that could happen in any residential district in Fairhope without a lot of phone calls. And plus, nowadays, there's an average of at least 8 emergency vehicles cruising up and down Greeno Road at any time of the day and night. We've become so accustomed to it that you don't even hear the sirens anymore, which is a sad testimonial. So specifically, this is our project. The area in yellow is what we're asking to be rezoned, and it's a 2.8 acre parcel. And you can see on the north and south, there are 2 60-foot wide right-of-ways, designated city streets. So we have 2 ingress and egress, one, the main one that bisects our property, and 1 ingress and egress to the north on Hoyle Street, and a third, which is an egress only on Live Oak Street to the south. The area that's encompassed in red are our immediate neighbors that are the only R1 properties that have a home on them at this time. And between the natural and created buffers, we have chosen not to have a 20-foot buffer as is required. There's 120 feet between our proposed B2 zoning and the R1 properties behind us. And the narrow strip that's in the blue, that's the buffering that's between our proposed B2 and our home that's outlined in the green, and that is a 50-foot buffer. And these are what the currently the buffers look like in November between us and our immediate neighbors to the west. And this would be our home, which is hidden appropriately enough behind all these shrubs and trees. However, we're not going to do anything to screw up where we live, and it's only about 160 feet from Greeno Road itself. So again, down through the years, this is what you'd have in a basic garden center. People would come in, buy a tree, you'd dig it, they'd wait around and you put it in the back of their trunk. Well, that's not really the case of what we've grown into now. A garden center today is kind of a destination spot. It's not just somewhere where you go and buy a plant and leave. It's a mixed use of indoor and outdoor living products, food and drink, professional services, educational events, and all of this is what we're choosing to do with this property. Currently, we have a building permit for our property that Mr. Cortinas gave to us approximately a year ago. But we have chosen, really, we want to have several other partners to come in with us to develop this property in a really nice fashion where it would be more intimate space like you'd see in this picture and here, which might have a food and drink aspect to it. Basically, what we want to do with the property is create somewhat of a micro village that's halfway between what has sometimes been termed the village of Piggly Wiggly and the rec center to our north. And what we're proposing to do is just grow this property organically, much the way downtown Fairhope grew. Slowly and over time and in a beautiful and appropriate fashion. Might have coffee shops, tea shops, restaurant, cafe, and of course, still a garden center. And I like to show this picture because this property was zoned, was it B1 or B2? B2 a number of years ago, and with Fairhope's rather strict architectural controls in place and landscape controls and site plan reviews, which of course we would be underneath those controls. This is the latest project that went up along there under B2 and under those conditions. And I think it's a beautiful and appropriate structure for Greeno Road, and probably has less comings and goings than a single-family residence might have. And what's equally important to us is the area that is above us in this watershed and below us. It's environmentally extremely sensitive, as we felt again just last night. So through the years, we've been pushing City of Fairhope to work on the Valana watershed to stop the erosion that not only affects us, but over 250 other property owners, residential owners, all the way down to the Fairhope Yacht Club. This is basically what it looks like behind our property in a heavy rain, such as we had last night. Not quite this bad, but this.
Coming from Hoyle.
Yeah, this is coming from the north. And that is resulting in this, which we think is the most environmental damage to any gully in Fairhope. Marco Rubio. But this is happening constantly in the gully right behind us, and we're the pass-through for a whole lot of water. This damage that we had in yet another 100-year event in 2015 is only about 60 feet from our back porch, and that's all behind our business. And this structure that's failing in the gully behind us, this gabion wall, is only about 60 feet from the residential neighborhood cul-de-sac called Lillian Circle. And in a huge rain, this structure is going to fall into the gully, and it will take with it Lillian Circle. So why do I mention this tonight? Well, we think of it as an opportunity because as the years go by and we develop this property, there'll be an opportunity for Fairhope and the Greens and the county and the state highway department to perhaps, as all this area develops, plan a regional detention facility on Hoyle Street and maybe on some of the properties to the north with a willing landowner, and everybody get together and alleviate some of those problems that are frankly horrible all the way down to the Fairhope Yacht Club, which I'm sure y'all are hearing about those pretty often. So anyway, that's what I have for you tonight. My wife will probably tell me I've forgotten to mention a few things. But I'd be happy to answer any questions and any concerns you might have. Or
Questions,
anybody
council?
here.
Would y'all consider any type of deed restrictions similar to what we impose, well, what the bank self-imposed down the street?
Can I answer that question?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you come up to the podium, though? It's just being videoed, and we need you on the record here.
Well, I certainly appreciate you guys spending this much time with us. And I know it's difficult when anybody comes to you and asks for a rezone. I get it. Mr. Conyers, you don't know me. Ms. Robbins, you don't know me. the closest people to anybody up here that knows us at all, Mr. Burrell, Robert Brown, who sat down with me numerous times before he even thought about running for council, and Kevin, who we went to school with, grew up with. We weren't close, but we knew who each other were. Since 1962, we have done nothing but give up. Absolutely nothing but give up. And what sums it up better than anything possibly could was when that median went in, and the city of Fairhope was going to intentionally put us out of business by not giving us an access in or out to our Greeno Road property. And that resulted in us having 3 ALDOT-approved ingresses and egresses. But what sums up our issues and our problems and our betrayals by the city of Fairhope is what the mayor at that time said. He said, somebody has to be sacrificed. And we have been sacrificed over and over by being rejected for rezoning, by being threatened, by being sued, by being tried to put out of business, by having to hire lawyers to defend us for things that we never even knew that we were involved in. And if you know us, you know that we have nothing but the best intent for this property. We have our reputations, and we live here. And our children, yeah, they're independent fiercely, but they also have our values and our morals. And they're not going to have anything done to this thing that would be inappropriate. So, I mean, I get it, but I think asking us to give up something more is just totally, completely out of the question. Also, this is not contingent upon any sale. This property is not for sale. And the last time you guys did a blind rezoning of B2 property was the Jack Ellis property. Remember that? Not too long ago? Downtown Fairhope? Part of the property, the restaurant was B2, the home was residential. And contingent on the sale of that entire property meant having the home rezoned B2. And the only thing we heard about that was, oh yeah, they're good people, rezone, granted. And that just doesn't sit right with me. No questions were asked of them. It was just give it to them, because they were good people. Now, I get it, it's in the downtown central business district, and we are on Greeno Road, but this business has been there since 1932. It's an animal of a different kind. So that is what I would really like for you to consider. Nobody is making us keep that land park-like now. Nobody is demanding we keep it well landscaped. Nobody does anything. We do that for us, no matter how much we've been stomped on. And I know, Jack, you say that was then and this is now, but I'm sorry, now and then run together constantly for us. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful in any manner, but to me, that is insulting me. And I know you didn't mean to.
No, I think y'all have a wonderful reputation. You're right, I don't know you, but your reputation's fantastic, and I'm not concerned about what happens while y'all are there. I'm just thinking longer term.
I understand.
If you were to sell, then what are we opened up to? And that's all. Not meant to be insulting at all.
And we will make sure nothing happens to it that we don't want to happen to it.
And then every parcel along Greeno Road that comes up before us in the future is going to say the same thing. You have to trust us.
If they had had a business there and established a reputation for 85 years, Jack, yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
I get
I hear what
it.
you're saying, but every person is going to say, well, why am I any less reputable than the Greens? That would be their argument. They would say, well, you don't know me, but am I any less reputable?
Well, I think past actions portend future development.
Exactly.
And you have an 85-year history of people on that property who have not done anything to damage the environment or the beauty, and have only produced income and wealth for the city of Fairhope, and have given back, as the saying goes, to the community over and over and over. So it's a little different animal than somebody coming from out of state and wanting Jimmy, the 25th bank.
Somebody even said you need to have, a certificate of need for a new bank. I mean, just the evil
I'd rather
in
hear
saying
you say.
something like that. But I understand completely, Jack, I really do, but we've given up enough.
All right,
And
let's,
also, one more thing, the fact that the city has issued us building permits continually on grandfathered-in property, that's another big, big, big thing to consider, too. So, thank you.
let's move on to the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, the public hearing is now open. If you would like to speak to this matter, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and I'd recommend laying this over council. If I don't hear a motion for immediate consideration, this will lay over until the next council meeting. Okay, this will lay over. Item number 9 is a resolution that the City Council approves the selection of Tischler Bice Incorporated to perform professional financial consulting services to study update of the impact fees for the City of Fairhope, and hereby authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to establish a fee schedule and to execute the associated contract with a not-to-exceed limit of $68,000. Do I hear a motion to?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass this resolution. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Study's approved. Thank you, council. Item number 10 is a resolution appointing a director to the Educational Building Authority of the City of Fairhope. Also, the St. Michael Catholic High School Authority, reappointing James C. Bailey for a term ending on the second Monday of November 2023. This was discussed in the work session. Can I entertain
So
a
moved.
motion to pass this resolution? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The resolution passes. Item 11 is a resolution approving the holidays for FY 2017 to 2018. You have those on tab 11. You've looked those over in the work session as well. We had a short discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve these holidays?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the holidays for FY 2017-2018. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, holiday schedule is approved. Item number 12 is a resolution the City Council approves the selection of Sawgrass Consulting to perform professional land surveying services for a survey of the Fairhope docks, marina, and boatyard, and hereby authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to negotiate a fee schedule and establish a not-to-exceed figure. Entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, resolution passes. Item 13 is a resolution from the Airport Authority authorizing Mayor Karen Wilson and the Fairhope Airport Authority and the City of Fairhope to make applications for airport improvement funding assistance from the State of Alabama Department of Transportation for the purpose of undertaking a project to make improvements at the H.L. Sonny Callahan Airport. Also briefed you on this in the work session. So I'll entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, resolution passes. Thank you, council. Item 14 is a resolution that the City of Fairhope hereby approves and adopts the franchise agreement for granting franchises to install, maintain, and operate a business on the city's public rights-of-ways or public property as presented. A copy of this is on file in the office of the city clerk, and that resolution number 2124-13 is hereby repealed. We discussed these changes at last meeting's work session. You should all be familiar with these. So I will entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Item 15 is a resolution that Mayor Karen Wilson is hereby authorized to execute a contract with Christian Preuss Landscape Architecture to perform professional architectural services for an MPO downtown traffic, pedestrian safety, and wayfinding signage and parking study with a not-to-exceed amount of $30,000. Total project cost will be $30,000 max through MPO planning funds, and the federal match not to exceed $24,000. The local match would be $6,000. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Item number 16 is a resolution to award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder who is compliant to bid applicant, can't talk, to bid specification criteria, the contract for painting of the 2 million gallon water tower for the water department. You heard from Mr. Peterson and also our attorney Tut Wynn in the work session. I have a few things that I would like to point out. Would somebody like to ask any questions of them before we get started?
I would. Richard, this is for you and Tut. You can maybe chime in on this too. But one of the things that was mentioned in the work session, and we talked about a little bit about the intent of the rule here, about the bidding. And I think our bidding requirement required each potential bidder, in order to qualify, to come down for this mandatory inspection session, correct?
That's correct.
And the purpose of that, or the intent of that mandatory requirement, was that so that the people doing the work knew exactly what they were getting into by coming and looking at it and knowing exactly what the surroundings were, what the environment was, and what they were being asked to do. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so we have an issue with a bidder that hired another company to come look at it for them. Is that right?
That is exactly right.
And that is the company they hired is not going to be here with them when they do that work. Is that right? Or are they?
You're batting 1,000.
So, I mean, if the intent is for the company that's going to do the work to be here and look at what we're doing and what they're going to see, why do we let anybody who sends a third-party inspector to come down here who's not going to be on site with them to do the work to bid?
Yeah, and the company that hires these third-party inspectors gives them a checklist of items that they want to know about for that site, and they require pictures and they require different observation and notes in order to make that determination.
Well, I mean, if we're going to allow them to do that, why don't we just send everybody a brochure of the work if we don't require people who are actually going to do the work to be here?
Well, I will say that I haven't seen third-party representation at a mandatory pre-bid meeting until now.
Yeah.
And I asked,
haven't either. It's all new to me.
and I did ask the different paint reps, you know, that we were working with in terms of getting the project put together, if that was common, and they say, yes, it was common. And, I took it as an opportunity for a contractor to find a way to find an edge to where he's following the requirements of the pre-bid without having to spend as much money as some contractors that may have to travel down and spend the night.
Right.
Well, Richard, out of the companies that bid, how many bid and how many of them had third-party?
2 contractors had third-party inspectors.
Okay, 2 of them did.
And 6 bid.
Were the 2 that sent third-party people the 2 lowest?
No, they were the lowest and the third lowest.
Okay. I mean, we're talking about interpretation of rules. And
Correct.
I've said this before. I mean, I like rules that don't require interpretation. The rules are what the rules are. If the
Right.
rule says you have to send somebody down here, then you got to send somebody down
Right.
here. And I think what we're talking about with this is their argument is they did send somebody, they just didn't sign the sheet.
Correct.
But, when you were talking about the intent of the rule earlier, I think the intent is to send somebody down here who's going to be doing the work so they know what they're doing before they get into it. And I don't know if the intent was met here because they didn't send somebody down here that was
Right.
going to actually be doing the work.
And I will say, in the defense of Tank Pro, they washed and cleaned out that tank in 2010 or 2012, And part of the 50-page document they supported was an entire report that was provided for that tank at that site back at that time.
So they
And I'm
do
not
have-
saying that has anything to do with what you're talking about.
Right.
But I'm saying that if you look at their intention to have somebody that'll represent them, the correspondence that I saw that looks appropriate in terms of trusting their judgment to have somebody there. And if you couple that with their experience with the tank itself, I just think, I'm just trying to be as fair and as honest about it as I can be. And I don't see that really rises to the level of infraction of what anybody else could have done. And I would have treated anybody else the same way.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I think this mandatory, when it says mandatory, sign-in or to be there, to me, that's mandatory. I mean, I don't know what the paint guy said or did, but in my 35 years, I've never seen it. I've never seen a representative down there. And that's really beside the point. The point is, we've set rules for this bid, and somebody else could have looked at this and said, I can't make it, so I'm not going to bid on it. I mean, there's a lot of deals here, and the reasons we set these rules is so that we can get what we want, and the integrity of this bid is very, very important to me, and that's why I disagree with you saying that this is a minor. It's not a minor. It's a major to me. It's a main item that you have to be here for this bid item, same as any other portion of the bid items that you have to meet.
And it's the council's responsibility to make that decision.
Right.
Mr. Office is here to obtain
I need
clarification.
to, let me handle this meeting. I need to talk about this because, and I am going to give them an opportunity to speak, but to me, this question is not about whether or not it was a minor infraction. I truly believe that if they had someone there representing themselves and they simply forgot to sign in, it's a minor infraction. And I also believe that if we didn't specify it and they had somebody that they assigned to be there, then, and they were there and they forgot to sign a piece of paper, that's probably a minor infraction.
I don't know that it's an infraction at all.
I don't know
if
if
they
it's
actually
infraction
had
at all. I
somebody
didn't say
there.
they had to sign it. Here's my question. My question is, I don't know that they had somebody there. Let me go through the timeline with you, if I will. This is the question to me. And I may step on some toes. And they definitely had to have someone there. Because it does say, it's the only paragraph that's in bold in the entire advertisement. It says a mandatory pre-bid meeting. So to me, they had to have someone there. The question is not whether or not they signed in. The question to me is whether or not they really had somebody there. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to address this. And this was all provided by Tank Pro. Tank Pro employed express employment to provide someone to attend the pre-bid meeting. Their instructions were, and this was highlighted in yellow with 3 stars on one side of it or asterisks and 3 on the other. Sign in as Tank Pro and use this email, and they gave the email address to use, and use this phone number for the contact info. Very clearly told their representative that they must do that. It is unmistakable. And then they said photo instructions. We need 25 to 30 photos to be taken, and it's highlighted in bold red. Do not miss this. This is their instructions now. And then we need diagrams. Take this, and then they followed with examples of photographs that you should take, and they followed with examples of distances that how you need to mark tanks to fences and other objects, and they had multiple examples of that. And the fee paid to attend the pre-bid meeting, the photos, and the site diagram was $75. That's what you would be paid for doing that. And the bid is the pre-bid meeting, by the way, is 9 a.m. September the 28th. Keep that in mind. At 12:16 on September the 27th, Express Pros, which was going to provide this representative for Tank Pro, said that Mr. Ethan, and I'm going to withhold his last name. Ethan, last name starts with a K, is going to report for the pre-bid meeting. So jot that down if you want. A man by the name of Ethan is going to be there. He's on his way to the office right now to get the paperwork. His instructions, highlighted in bold, yellow, and stars, and everything else you can highlight it with, so he doesn't make a mistake. At 3:34 later that day, on the same day, Wednesday, remember, the meeting is at 9 a.m. the next day. At 3:34, the day before the meeting, if they worked till 5, they had an hour and 26 minutes. Thank you. This is also from Express Pros to Tank Pro. Thank you. I just sent this over to Ethan, so he got the instructions. So that's who's supposed to represent them. On Friday, the day after the meeting, at 4:40 p.m., well over 24 hours after the meeting, which is not necessarily unusual to get around to sending emails, there's an email from Express Pros that says to Tank Pro, this is what Mr. Eric sent me. Now, that's not a typo. This was Eric, not Ethan. And there were a bunch of photos that followed. So Eric attended the meeting, not Ethan, who 3:34 p.m. the day before was going to be there. And then on October the 2nd, Monday, following the Thursday meeting, there's an email that says a man by the name of Jason, last name starts with H, is on his way to get the measurements. He's the other gentleman that did the other bid. Eric was not available, but Mr. Haas was at the bid for another company. So Mr. Haas is providing the measurements. Now let's go back to their instructions. Get measurements and get photos. So Ethan didn't show up. Eric didn't provide the measurements. If he was hired, did he not follow these instructions? I want to know why he didn't follow these instructions. They're pretty clear. So now they're getting the measurements from a man by the name of Jason, who's the other gentleman that did the other bid. Eric wasn't available. So did he not do the job that he was hired to do? So the question is, Ethan is nowhere to be found. Did you hire Eric, who, by the way, attended on behalf of another company? But then Jason provided the measurements. If Eric was hired, and here's a letter saying that they were hired to attend the meeting, he didn't sign in, he signed in for another company. Here's an invoice where they paid Eric roughly $72, which was about the $75 that they were said, dated October the 4th, by the way. Wednesday after 6 days after the meeting. Not unusual now, that doesn't make it wrong. Invoices, 6 days is not too bad. Doesn't make it wrong. What it does to me is it raises red flags. Did Eric not read the instructions? If he was hired by Express to represent Tank Pro, why didn't he follow their instructions, which are highlighted, unmistakable? And then if he did do that work and he was hired by them, why did he need Mr. Jason to provide the measurements? It just kind of, I'm going to say it, it looks like it was an afterthought. Let's find somebody that was there. That's what it looks like. Not saying that it was, but that's what it looks like. Let's find somebody that was there that didn't say represented us.
And I reached out to the other tank company that hired the other inspector that was there representing Express, and the information that he provided the other company wasn't any more complete than the information you just described in what you've seen. I'm not saying it's right.
Right, I understand.
And I'm not trying to punish anybody for what.
No, that's a point well taken. I understand.
It ultimately comes down to, and I'll wait to hear what Mr. House has to say, but if Tank Pro had someone there, I don't believe it's a minor infraction. I don't believe it's an infraction at all. Whether that was a third-party person or not, because if our rules don't specify it has to be someone from their company, which I think we should do that in the future, if the purpose of the inspection is so that someone doing the work
and I
is
agree,
there.
instructions for any mandatory pre-bid meeting I mean, yeah, obviously, we need to be better at that, and
But if
that's my fault.
But if that's not part of these rules, then they followed the rules if they did hire somebody and someone on their behalf was there. So the question becomes, do we think someone was there for them?
Right.
Yes or no?
That's the question, and there's a gap between when Ethan was hired and when Eric showed up. They've got such a great email trail saying that
Oh, I
Ethan was
agree.
going to be there, and all of a sudden
I agree.
Eric was there for them, but that doesn't show up
Right.
till
And
day and a half after.
You know,
meeting.
and to me, I don't think you can say that Tank Pro didn't make an honest effort to make arrangements to have somebody there.
I agree with that.
I mean, and I don't know how that matters to anything.
Come on. We're going to give them a chance to come to the podium, if you will.
To address some of these issues.
Will you come to the podium, please?
My partner, Laura Strong, is going to address this.
Okay.
But I would say that, Mr. Robinson, that is correct. I think that the way your documents are written, the only issue here today is whether we had somebody there. Because your documents don't require anybody to sign in. Your documents don't allow you to hire an agent. Tut and I've talked about this. I do a lot of municipal work. I have a lot of public clients, and we don't restrict people from bringing agents. You know, I didn't realize that they did this, but apparently they do. We looked at your documents. Your documents don't prohibit it. None of the documents my clients ever issue prohibit that. I'm actually going to raise that issue with my clients to see if they want to make that a restriction. But you're limited to your documents in this case.
Right.
So the case, as Mr. Burrell said, is, you know, did they have somebody there? Now, my partner Laura's going to address this. We can only address it from the position of Tank Pro, right? Because we don't know Ethan. Ethan's not an employee of ours. All we can tell you is what we know. And also, our client provided you all those documents, I think, this week, at your request. So it's not like we're hiding anything. We're throwing it all out here for you to see, so you see it all, and you see all the evidence, and nothing's hidden from it. Thank you.
Good evening. Again, I'm Laura Strawn, and I work with Mr. Alvis. So Tank Pro, it is their standard practice to hire agents like this, to hire somebody within the community to attend these meetings. They hired express employment professionals. As part of that email chain, you can see where somebody with Tank Pro reached out to Express and said, we need somebody to attend this mandatory pre-bid meeting. They confirmed that they would have somebody attend. Ultimately, Eric Reed is who we were told attended the meeting on behalf of Tank Pro. And the next day sent photos saying these are the photos that Eric sent. Within a week after the meeting, they sent the invoice for Eric Reed attending the meeting on behalf of Tank Pro. And then apparently, I think it was after the meeting, the issue was raised as to whether somebody signed in on behalf of Tank Pro. We've gone through that, and we've provided y'all with the verification of attendance confirming that Eric Reed attended on behalf of Tank Pro. So that's all we have. Tank Pro doesn't know what happened with Ethan and why it was Eric or anything like that. But Tank Pro did its best to fulfill the requirements of your bid documents and have somebody there. And that's what they thought happened. But as Sean mentioned, the bid documents do not require anybody to sign in, and they do not prohibit an agent from attending on behalf of the bidder. The Alabama Public Works Law requires that the awarding authority award the bid to the lowest responsive bidder. Tank Pro was the lowest bidder by, I think, about $29,000. So even if signing in or attending, the bidder attending the meeting themselves was a requirement of the bid documents, the Alabama law allows an awarding authority to basically ignore it if it's considered a minor irregularity. We do not think that this is an infraction because it's not required by the bid documents. So we would ask that the council award the bid to Tank Pro as the lowest responsive bidder.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, I want to say, once again, I don't think anybody's disputing whether or not the sign-in was the infraction. It's whether or not they had a representative there.
The what?
Well, we had a letter when this issue first came up, and it was addressed with Tank Pro. Tank Pro got back with Express to verify that Mr. Reed, or whatever his name was, Eric Reed, attended on his behalf. And so we have a letter
Yeah.
from Express.
We have that.
says, yes, he was. So, I mean, unless we're here as a trier of fact as to the veracity of Express, which I'm not, and I don't know if you are, from our viewpoint, it appears that Tank Pro hired somebody to attend. That company, Express, had someone attend. And if you notice, if you look at the signature page, sign-in page, where Eric Reed signed in, he didn't sign using his own email address. He signed using a general email address for the company that he was also there for. Express says he was there for us. There's the letter. I'm not sure what else Tank Pro can do as your lowest bidder anymore to prove to you that they had an agent there. It's a difference of $28,000 to reject their bid. It's going to cost the municipality $28,000. We think we had somebody there. Tank Pro is the lowest bidder. They are qualified. There's no issues here about whether or not they're qualified. The question here is whether or not they're responsive, rather, and I think they are. So, thank you.
You know, I believe that there has to be, and we've had this discussion up here before, I believe there has to be integrity of the bidding process for this whole process to work in general. We are bound by our document. If the companies, whether I like the process or not, and to be honest, I'm not incredibly thrilled with this particular process. You know, ultimately, like I said before, the issue is whether they had somebody there on their behalf or not. And if they've got a document from the company they hired said, yes, somebody was there on our behalf, I mean, I can't dispute that, and I don't know if that's my job. You know, so to me, that document says that they met their requirement and that they were a qualified bidder.
Yeah, Eric Reed did sign in as TMI Coatings, the other bidder.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing.
He didn't sign in with a generic email.
Well,
He
For
signed in
all,
with TMI Coatings.
for all we know,
In the letter that they
My
sent.
point, Mr. Burrell, was it's not a personal email for that individual. He was there as an agent for two.
Nobody, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm not disputing that you can even have an agent there. I'm not even disputing that you have to sign in.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think you did.
Express, you know, could have sent one person down there for 8 companies in theory if our rules don't forbid it.
Here's my question, Jay. So you have, how many people submitted bids? 6. So you open those 6 bids and you find the lowest bidder is Tank Pro. Then you go down and look at the mandatory meeting roster and you don't see Tank Pro. Why was Tank Pro contacted in the first place if they didn't have a representative there? At what point were they reached out to and asked if they had a representative there?
And I spoke to this earlier, a couple of days after the meeting, after the pre-bid meeting, they called and they asked for the summary of the meeting, and I said, well, I don't see your name on the list, and oh, we had somebody there. And I said, well, if you can prove that, that's fine. But.
At that point, the bid should have been awarded, prior to that.
That's what I'm sorry?
I said, to me, the bid should have been awarded prior to 3 days after that. You look down the list at the people
I
that,
think there's some confusion. After the mandatory meeting, Tank Pro called in asking some additional questions. It was at that point it was identified by the Fairhope that they didn't see their name on the list. So Tank Pro then went and acquired that document before they actually bid.
Yeah,
So all that was discovered before they submitted the bid. The bid was allowed to be submitted and opened with all the other bids after this issue was
Yeah, I
discovered.
got you.
And I believe the date of the letter, October 11th, was prior to the bid being accepted by the municipality. So all this issue was raised between the pre-bid meeting
And the bid.
before the bids were submitted.
Do you think that it's not a possibility that Express dropped the ball, didn't get somebody there, and after the fact said, who can we say that was there representing Tank Pro to save face?
It's possible, but probably I don't think so.
I think-
I don't know exactly what I said earlier is, I'm not here to judge the veracity of Express, and I don't know if you guys have any additional information. We have everything from our client's position that we've provided to you guys. Now, how hard is it to call somebody else and say, hey, Ethan's sick, I need this other guy, I need you to show up for this? As long as it was done beforehand.
That's
And
plausible.
if we need to go and do discovery and all that to figure this out, which I think is a waste of the $28,000 savings for the municipality, I think as far as our client is concerned, we believe we met with the requirements of the bid documents.
And Jack, I think your comments, I think, are very possible, but I think it's equally possible that Express could have said, hey, we've already got somebody going here, why don't we just pay one guy and collect a fee from both companies and
Double
get the same
hourly
information?
rate. That's what I
Yeah.
really think happened. I didn't want to say all that. but-
No, I mean,
Could.
you never know.
It's equally possible, but
It's
I
equally
tell you,
possible.
but that's why I kind of pointed out how they sent their instructions to these people. They were extremely clear on what you should do. So if he was there representing Express, our Tank Pro, and Tank Pro's instructions, did they not have time to say, maybe at 8:30, they said, Ethan can't make it, Eric's going to be there, we don't have time to get these instructions. See, the record is so clear up until right before the meeting. From 3:30 in the afternoon to 9 a.m., the record disappears,
Yeah, I agree.
and then a day and a half later, oh, Eric was there.
I agree with that, and there's two things I'd like to say. One, it really doesn't matter what the low bid or the next lowest bid was compared to each other. That's, to me, doesn't have anything to do with this. And I've asked both Tank Pro and Express to submit affidavits that validate all of those documents, and under some
I believe they
penalty-
did, too.
penalty of
Tank
law.
Pro
that-
did, didn't they?
well, and I think you're going to prepare that, right?
I don't know what
Did
you're
we
talking
have,
about.
did we not have an
I
affidavit?
mean, not to say we wouldn't do that, but I don't,
Well,
if we
that
did an
was-
affidavit that said those are true and correct copies of their documents, I can do that, like a custodial.
And we emailed back and forth between Tut and Tank Pro, and they first thought maybe we should provide these affidavits, and then Tut thought, well, that we shouldn't provide anything, that his attorney should, and
I didn't know. If you guys had asked for an affidavit through our office, we would have provided.
we didn't ask for it. Philip at Tank Pro should have asked for it. But that would have been Friday.
I think where you're going with that's a good idea, though,
And it
because
would've
the
been late
affidavit
Friday.
would, and not that these documents are real, I don't dispute any of these documents, I think all these documents are real documents, but the question of
No, but if
whether or
they're-
not they had representation there provided by Express.
That's what I
If you had an affidavit
If
saying,
it doesn't
Express
get-
provided this person for us,
Yeah, and
Well, I
I
think
don't,
that's what we did,
That's-
was getting with Express and getting a letter from them. Because I think when the issue was raised by the municipality, Tank Pro got in touch with Express and said, hey, what's the deal? Do we have somebody? Yes, you did. We sent this gentleman for you, and that's what we got from our agent. Now, if you need an affidavit from our client saying, we contacted Express and they verified that they had this gentleman there for us, and here's a copy of the letter, I can do that.
What
I
I
don't know
need,
if that does any good.
I'm gonna just be straight up with you. What I need is a signature on that piece of paper right there. That alleviates any question whether the man was there or not, and it's not there.
It would. Unfortunately, your bid
Now-
documents don't even require that.
It doesn't matter. To me, it does not matter. I mean, I spent 35 years bidding. Everybody knows at a mandatory meeting, there's a sign-in sheet to show that you were there. Everybody knows this. This is a common fact.
well, he was there, now the guy.
The
Eric,
point of it
he
is,
was
there's,
hired.
whoever was there was not representing Tank Pro, because his signature's not here, and that would alleviate any problem we got, because it's not here. I feel that the bid items were not met for any reason whatsoever. You sign, give us all the paperwork you want. The paperwork I want to see is a signature, same as everybody else is on here that does have it.
Well, Mr. Boone.
And I'm very-
All I
I'm-
can say, Mr. Boone, is that the company that employed that gentleman that signed in says that he was there for us also.
Well, he was also for, I'm assuming that's Eric Reed.
Yes, sir. And he was there
He's
for-
also there for TMJ Coatings.
That's correct, yes, sir.
See, I don't buy that at all. I mean, I'll just be straight, I don't buy that at all. I don't even appreciate
I
that.
can't do anything other than tell you what Express. the company-
Understood. I got no problem with you. I got I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with it at all.
I would actually, I don't really know that I need anything else from Tank Pro. I think their documents show that they had the intention of sending someone there from Express. If I'm going to see an affidavit, I think a more meaningful affidavit would be from Eric Reed to say, I was asked to be there on behalf of Tank Pro, and I was there on behalf of Tank Pro.
Prior to the meeting, I asked prior to the meeting to be there for Tank Pro.
I mean, if we're going to ask for one, and I'm not saying we need it, but that would be the affidavit that would make the most sense.
Well, the problem I'm having is he was asked to be there by TMJ Coatings.
Well, I mean,
Just like you said, why not just get one company to hire for everybody? I mean,
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm
takes away
saying.
the whole purpose of the meeting.
Right, but our rules don't, as they were written for that particular bid, they could have done that, and they all would have been acceptable bids under that scenario because our bid didn't require them to do anything else.
And I understand that, but this paper here tells me who was in the meeting and who wasn't at the meeting.
Well, right, and
And that's all I'm interested in, is this piece of paper right here.
But
which
that
is-
paper says Eric Reed was
Which
there.
is the sign-in sheet at the meeting.
Well, Eric Reed was there. He was.
That's great, but he's there for representing TMJ Coatings. And I have a problem with that.
Well, there's three options, award it to Tank Pro with the informality of not being signed in on the sheet and accepting the information they give you as being represented. Reject that bid because you don't believe it and award it to the second lowest bidder,
Who's the second lowest bidder? Is that utilities?
utility service.
I just need to know a
Or
name.
reject all the bids and rebid it, which I have a little bit of a problem with that.
I do too. If we're through discussing,
Let's,
You know, and-
I'm going to ask y'all to take your seat, and let's wrap it up, Council.
And I'll say this, and I'll say this for the.
And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable waiving any bid infraction because I think that if the rules are set and everybody knows them, everybody must follow them. I don't personally believe, if I'm believing Express, they sent somebody for them, I don't think there was any infraction. So I don't personally have any problem awarding it to Tank Pro under this scenario. I'm not crazy about this process, and I think we could do it better to eliminate some of these potential loopholes in the future, or maybe not loopholes, but misunderstandings. But I think, in my mind, as it stands, if you believe that sheet of paper, they met the bidding requirements and should be considered if they were the lowest bid. So I would make a motion to approve Tank Pro as the lowest responsible bidder.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? I'm having a difficult time, Councilman Robinson, with that. The scenario is,
I'm not.
there are a lot of red flags on this, and I've already said it before. And, the question is just whether or not I believe that Eric was there representing both.
You could get an affidavit from Eric.
Yeah.
I mean, and Eric is swearing under oath that he was asked to be there.
I would almost, wish that we had it conditional upon receiving an affidavit from him to protect ourselves from the second low bidder that's going to say they violated the requirements.
That's right. You know what? Better safe than sorry. I will amend my motion to.
You want to withdraw?
I'll withdraw that motion, and I'll make a new motion that we award the bid to Tank Pro as the lowest responsible bidder, contingent on a signed affidavit from Eric Reed stating that he was asked to attend the mandatory inspection meeting on behalf of Tank Pro.
Prior to the meeting.
Prior to the pre-bid meeting.
Prior to the pre-bid meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. The motion was to award the bid to Tank Pro contingent upon receiving an assigned affidavit from Eric Reed that he was asked by, probably expressed, to attend on behalf of Tank Pro prior to the bid meeting. Any discussion?
I'm going to tell you, I just have a real problem with all that because this isn't rocket science. This sheet was asked to be signed before the meeting, after the meeting. Did you sign it? Nobody
Well,
signs it for Tank Pro.
I would argue with that and say it wasn't asked to be signed, they were asked to attend.
No, at the meeting. Everybody knows to sign that sheet at the meeting. Everybody knows it. And nobody signed it for Tank Pro. I just have a real problem with this.
Well, I don't know if Eric thought it necessary to sign in for both, in his defense, although that's suspect.
Tank Pro wasn't represented as far as I'm concerned, if he didn't feel it necessary.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries 3-2. Question, council, is if we don't get that signed affidavit, we have to still award the bid. So, I almost.
Well, is there a time, I mean, how long has he got to give us this affidavit?
Well, we need to
Month?
get moving on this. I just wonder if we shouldn't entertain a motion that in the event we don't receive it, that the bid is awarded to the second low bidder. Do we need to take care of that business tonight to keep them having to come in here?
I would.
Amend our agenda?
I recommend that.
I would, and then put a limitation, if we don't have it by a week or 7 days or whatever you want to call it, show's over.
I think it'd be wise to move the process along, that we probably need to.
I'll go ahead and make a
amend the
motion,
agenda.
I'll make a motion that if we don't receive a affidavit in 7 days, or is that too long or too short,
I think it's too long.
in 4 days,
End of the week.
Well, what if he's in Mexico on vacation?
then he's got a problem. If it's not in, by the end of the week, by Friday, we award the bid to Utility Services Incorporated.
Do we need to amend the agenda, clerk? Do we need to add this?
No.
Okay, so we're just going to walk this on. I would say that in your motion, you probably should say that you're going to rescind the previous resolution.
Okay.
Therefore, they don't contradict each other.
In my motion, I would say that if we don't receive documentation, the affidavit by the end of the week, Friday, in the business, we'll have to rescind this resolution and approve the
Approve the second lowest
second
bidder?
lowest bidder, which would be Utilities Services Company Incorporated.
I'm not sure if you have to do that, because didn't the first resolution say conditioned upon?
Right, but you're not awarding it to anybody. We still have to have an awarding.
You're awarding it to Tank Pro conditioned upon getting the affidavit.
Yeah, but you still have to have a motion to award it to the second low bidder if that's not met, because that wasn't part of the motion.
That's right, but I don't think you have to rescind the previous
Okay.
resolution.
Okay, so Councilman Boone, I think you would probably make the motion that in the event the requested information is not provided, that, I'm not recognizing him right now, I see him. In the event that the affidavit, signed affidavit is not received, you'd award it to the second low bidder?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
So the deadline, what, Friday at 5, was that the?
What's your deadline?
End of business.
In the business,
And
right?
and close the business at 5 PM Friday?
Is that doable?
Clarification?
Is that doable on y'all's end?
I'll allow
Will
you,
you
just one
entertain
time.
a indiscretion? Can we have a reasonable amount of time? We've been talking to the city for a week about this. If we had known there was an affidavit requirement, we would have gotten our client working on that. That only gives us 3 days, okay?
It's a 5-minute phone call.
No, it's
The
not.
paperwork, it's the guy
You can ask-
signs.
You can ask your attorney to when it takes more than 5 minutes to get an affidavit from somebody, if you can find them in 5 minutes. Right now, it's after business hours. I can't contact my client, I can't contact Mr. Reed, I can't contact Express.
Okay.
You mentioned a 7-day period. I think that is reasonable. That's all I like to say.
Mr. Nguyen, is 7-day reasonable, or we have 4 business days till the close of business Friday.
4 days is plenty of time.
You know, it's in the council's discretion. I think that, I don't see why tomorrow people couldn't be contacted, affidavits be drafted, email attached, wherever they have to be, signed and sent in. I just don't see why it has to take, so many days. And we're already delayed by all this stuff anyway. We've been delayed already by Texas.
We have a motion, we have a motion and a second on the table to award the bid to the second lowest bidder if the affidavit is not received by 5 PM this Friday. Any more discussion? Any final discussion? Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. I want to state that the reason we spend so much time on this is because we're very serious about our rules and regulations, and we want to adhere to them at all times. Item number 17 is a resolution that the City Council agrees to contribute the required 20% local match for the downtown Fairhope Transit Shelter Project amounting to $120,000 of the total project cost of $600,000. On item 17, you'll know that is concerning the improvements to be made at the downtown parking garage. Those are 20 cents on the dollar. Any questions about that before we entertain a motion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to agree to this required contribution.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Item 18, Chief Ellis. Maybe the most patient man in the room tonight.
Thank you, Council. What we're asking, the fire department's asking for, we're starting our planning for the second barbecue cook-off, smoke 'em if you got 'em fundraiser. And there's a list of items there. I'm going to turn this over to one of the committee people, David Thomas.
Thank you, Council. It's basically the same as last year. We're adding another street. We're going from just being on Equality to going down Bancroft now in between Magnolia and Pine. We're asking for everything is the same as last year between the portable light towers, barricades, few tents, and then we are asking to extend the noise ordinance by an hour, being the band's scheduled from 9 to 11 p.m.
Chief Pettis, do you see any reason to deny this application?
No, sir. I looked over and everything's been all right.
Okay. Questions, council?
Yeah, I would say one thing, maybe everything's not quite the same, and that they really need to find another judge.
Yeah, the judges, we haven't quite figured that out yet, but we did say on the judges, no to-go boxes.
You can definitely count me out.
Yeah, I think I would condition this upon making sure that I get to judge it.
That's my condition.
That's very true.
Okay. In granting this request to the Fairhope Volunteer Fire Department, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to grant this request. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, request granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 19, the Fly Creek sampling plan. And I'm going to read this resolution because it's not in your book. It says, "Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Fairhope, Alabama as follows. The City of Fairhope hereby states its support for Mobile Baykeeper sampling plan to identify the source of the elevated bacteria levels in Fly Creek and Mobile Bay and to help Fairhope obtain the tools to resolve the issue. Further, the council authorizes the payment of up to $6,500, and this should say in cash and/or in-kind contributions to pay the estimated cost of the study, duly passed and adopted this 23rd day of October 2017. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Yep.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Sherry Lee did email during the meeting and state that the fees for the Grandman Triathlon event were typically under $2,000.
Okay. Well, that may be $2,000 less if we can work it out every little bit. Maybe, if we want to. If they'll agree to it. All right. We have a motion and a second?
Yes, you do.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. All right, public participation. If you have anything else to bring forth before the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You will be given 3 minutes.
T.J. Murphy, Tensaw Avenue. Guys, I'll be honest with you, I'm probably more disappointed in the council tonight than I ever have been. It went through that lengthy discussion about this bid process, and I don't think that was a council issue at all, I'll be honest with you. There wasn't too many weeks ago where you went through a stopgap insurance deal where the perception at least was that you tried everything you could do not to let the low bidder get that bid because they didn't follow the bid instructions. I agree with that. It was the right thing to do. The message was you're going to follow the bid policies. Tonight, it seemed like you did everything you could do to make sure the low bidder did get the job. The inconsistency among the administration of the city, from the planning commission, from the planning department, all the way through is ridiculous. Man, I'm telling you, tonight just about hit it all with me. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Anyone else? Clay, I'll close public participation, and I will ask the council to consider going into executive session. I will read this letter. As City Attorney Marion E. Wynn, I hereby request the Fairhope City Council go into executive session based on Section 36-25A-7A3 to discuss pending litigation and possible settlement options regarding said pending litigation. City Attorney Wynn does hereby declare that the City Council of the City of Fairhope rise from regular City Council meeting on Monday, October 23rd, 2017, to go into executive session. The council shall be in executive session for approximately 45 minutes. At the end of the executive session, the City Council shall return to the City Council chambers to resume the City Council meeting. The time is 8:10 p.m. We'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Clerk, will you call the question? Or have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Clerk, will you call the question?
Council President?
Aye.
Place 2?
Aye.
Place 3?
Aye.
Place 4?
Aye.
Place 5?
Aye. Okay, let's go into executive session. We'll be back in approximately 45 minutes. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the council meeting now. If I can get everybody's attention. We have two agenda items. Do we have to amend the agenda? Yes. Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to include two resolutions. The first resolution would be to a motion to take our attorney's advice on a settlement options or settlement agreement concerning the, which was the first, the Solomon case, to take their advice on the cash payment and the construction improvements that need to be made on the street, Cuscawilla. So that would be the first one. The second resolution would be a resolution to take council's attorney's advice concerning the settlement of the Sherry Sullivan claim. Is that adequate, Mr. Wynn?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add those two resolutions.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, on the first item,
Well, let me just say,
yeah.
but
Sure.
give council authority to settle the cases on those terms. Give council the authority to settle the cases on the terms as recommended.
okay, so the first resolution would be to give the Fairhope City Council to settle the claim on the terms submitted by our attorneys. There's a cash portion to that settlement agreement, and then there's an in-kind services to that settlement agreement.
Right, and it would be giving Attorney Matt McDonald the authority.
Giving, so give our representative attorney, Matt McDonald, the authority to settle that. So you were talking council, that council again.
That's right.
You got to get me that S or the C there.
That's right, that's right.
Okay. Any questions? Did I get that right? I'll entertain that motion, pass that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any members of the media, I'm sure that those terms would be public information. You can look that up shortly. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And on the second resolution, Councilman Robinson will abstain from this vote. This is a motion to approve our counsel/attorney with an S, counsel with an S, approve them to proceed with a settlement of the Sherry Sullivan claim in the amount, dollar amount specified by said attorney. Is that sufficient?
Giving him authority to settle for that.
Giving our council the authority to settle the claim. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pass this resolution. Any final discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion passes. Any final business, council? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.